4.5K to 16K. And the reason for this is, again, as I said, we have an all-new team. They're bringing a lot to the table, but especially for our new grads, we want to invest in them, and we just think that it would really pay dividends for the city of Gary if they're able to, understand and learn more about best practices, both in their industry, but also from other cities. For advertising, believe it or not, previously our advertising budget was zero. I think this is kind of astounding, given the fact that it's a communications department. So we did put 20K in there, and that's about 2,000 approximately for, again, 311 constituent services, illegal dumping, Parks and Rec, public safety, community development, and then we also have 10,000 for general sponsorships. Advertising, when I speak about advertising, that can be used in a variety of ways. I mean, as elected officials, I know you're very well versed in these types of things, but for the public, I'll just say that can be outdoor, things like billboards and posters. It can also be digital, so things like putting some ad spend behind the 311 video that we're producing with constituent services. Why do we put ad spend behind videos? It's just because our reach, as I said, is around 3,000 people on Facebook. And when you put ad spend behind something, it allows us to just reach more people in the city. And for a city of 65,000, we know that there's just a lot of services that we need to do a better job, explaining and educating on. And so in order for us to do that, we have to spend advertising dollars. The most effective way to spend advertising dollars these days is probably going to be digital. So that's looking like Meta, which is, Facebook, and Instagram, Google, YouTube. And then obviously we want to invest in advertising with local print partners. Leases, we went from 18,000 to zero for leases, and all of that budget was moved into current charges. We also, for capital expenses, went from 7 to 0, and that was also moved into current charges. That's because we just don't really need heavy machinery. We don't really have a lot of CapEx expenses. Current charges, we're up to around 45,000, and that's almost all going to be software. So what we've seen, and I don't think I really went deep into this when I started, was we had outdated equipment and no software coming in the door. That is really not normal for a modern communications and marketing team. So we have to invest in software, and people have been paying for it out of their own pockets. As a matter of fact, we had team members who were bringing in their own cameras and things of that nature. So the first decision that was made was to invest in hardware equipment so that we were using City of Gary equipment for everything we did. And then the next investment that I would like for the city to embrace is embracing modern software. So some of those charges, and I'm happy to share this information more in detail offline if that's more convenient, would be software for social media management, for buying tickets online, software for graphic design, email marketing. We also have stock photography and newspaper subscriptions. So there's a number of different, we also have software for our public access live streaming. That's an expense of about $18,000 annually that we're already making. So that's something that we want to invest in collaboration, both with our new videographers on our team, as well as the videographers that are on the Common Council team. We want to work together on that public access programming moving forward. I think that's all that I had to share. Do you have any questions?
Of course we have questions, but I think that you should go forward and go ahead and do the last Media Fund 205, because I believe all of this is coming out of the same revenue source, and then we could pause after that.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam President, council members. So I'm going to give a quick overview.
State your name and title for the record, please.
Oh, my name is Kiana Grant, Director of the Mayor's Office of Constituent Services.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to give a quick overview of what my office does and then an explanation of why we've separated the budget. So essentially, our department serves as the primary point of access for the city, with most individuals entering through us for a variety of services and information. So we really operate as a central hub. I would separate our office into three key areas. Number one, we provide guidance and access to information. So we're essentially the go-to source, directing people to the appropriate resources provided by various city departments, organizations, and community partners, whether this is city service, local events, community support. We're essentially like the plug that connects individuals to what they need. Second of all, we act as mediators, or we triage. So we essentially ensure that residents and visitors get the help they need quickly and efficiently. And this process helps us resolve problems by routing requests to the right places. Essentially, this is our Gary 311 system. And thirdly, we're really needs-based. We provide needs-based solutions. So our services are really targeted and needs-based, specifically crafted to address gaps and respond to the unique needs of various communities and individuals, whether it's supporting underserved groups, filling in gaps in services. We're just committed to providing what is missing. And so our focus is on being responsive and adaptive, meeting people where they are. And this can really materialize in the form of initiatives, programs, projects, booklets of information. I'll give an example. For example, one of the initiatives that will begin rolling out next year, such as our AARP Advisory Council and supporting what that looks like in the community. One of the programs that we house right now is Love Your Block program. Another project that we took on, which was really the reconfiguration of the 311 system, which I'll speak to in a second. And then as far as like booklets of information, this is really any resources or pamphlets that the community is in need of. So we find this out in two different ways. One way is we have a call log. So we receive all the calls sent to the city of Gary. And so my executive assistant does a weekly report emphasizing what callers are in need of so that we can be most responsive to that. Then the other way we find that out is through our 311 system. And so one of the things that we are currently working on is a basic needs guide, which essentially are all of the services or resources provided by internal departments for the city of Gary, as well as external agencies all in one place, which we will distribute in 2025. And so really quickly to speak to the 311 system, in February, I began to start a reconfiguration of the Gary 311 system. And so what that looked like in short was removing any non-311 departments or agencies. We did a survey. We also scaled from 430 request types to 35 request types, which reduced selection process for constituents by 91%. We added prompts to request types. So if you're going into the system and you want to report on illegal dumping, there are the ordinances to explain what you're actually selecting. And so we have 9 departments that are currently in the 311 system as a result. Secondly, we were able to institute a new policy for all staff who was in the 311 system, which is essentially responding within 24 to 48 hours of the initial request that is submitted, as well as adhering to a quality insurance level of standardized comments that are given to constituents in respects to the time frame that they can expect resolve and who to contact to get updates and information. We also hired a GIS contractor to perform layer updates. So essentially, he created the district layers or updated those layers because they were broken in layman's terms. He also added railroad layers and neighborhoods so that now we can get that information concerning each request per district accurately. And we can also see all of those requests per districts in a map format as well due to that contractor and his updates. And lastly, we've updated the Gary 301 app, which is downloadable via the App Store and Google Play, where you can also be connected to the city on that app. You can also find a shortcut to pay all of your utility bills as well. And so our office is pretty much divided into, not divided, but these are the staff, a part of my office. So it's myself as a director, there's an executive assistant, and then we essentially have a call center unit, which is really just the front desk. And so they've been performing dual roles as front desk receptionists, as well as taking 311 calls and entering them and responding, giving the residents their updates. And so really the explanation for separating the media fund into two departments, in previous years, the funding for both the communications department and my office, constituent services, has been managed under a single unified fund. And so this structure, while functional, it just limited our ability to clearly distinguish what's needed for communications versus constituent services. And as our work becomes increasingly specialized, it's become necessary to separate the two to ensure proper resource allocation and management. And so essentially by establishing a distinct budget for constituent services, I'll be able to more effectively manage my staff, allocate funds for services or resources tailored specifically to the needs of my office without needing to coordinate through another department or director for everything. So this should enhance operational efficiency and streamline the budgeting process. And so as far as any changes, I mean, this money was already a part of the media fund. It's just separated into my office. But I will speak to one specific change, which is the salary from the two part-time staff, from that $13,791.70 to $15,600. Reason being, they've had the same pay for a few years now, and they were just simply paid below average. Was there any further explanation needed for this budget?
No, thank you for your conclusion. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Okay, well, I have a couple of questions. I'll start with you, Ms. Grant. So you stated that a GIS contractor was already hired who helped to improve, I guess, the opportunity to get more data that would support our needs to conclude or to close some of our 311 concerns. Was that contractor already given a contract from the city?
Yes, so we had help from Mayor's office and from IT to help pay for the initial services through the GIS contractor.
And how long is the contract?
It was for a few months. I don't have the specifics in front of me as far as the date.
Okay.
But the project has concluded as of 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And do the individuals who, first of all, it's news to me that there was a constituent service department. This is the first that we've actually know that there was a department. I didn't even know that these individuals reported to you. So thank you for explaining the organizational structure there with that. But just wanted to ensure that additional training will be given to the individuals who report to you. You mentioned that majority of the call logs are indeed filtered through that particular desk. But I also want to note that I believe a large portion of those calls are actually coming through our office as well. And so if there is a plan to incorporate a way to streamline a connection between our staff and your staff and being able to give constituents the right information, that would be great. I do know that a lot of misinformation is given to individuals who are calling the front desk, one being that the council is responsible for certain things that we're not responsible for. And so that would be great that that would be a part of your training related to your staff.
Thank you.
And also any You all mentioned a lot about resources, pamphlets that you all are working on. Again, a lot of people bypass the front desk and come up to our office, and so we will ask if you will collaborate with our staff to ensure that we have information related to what the administration is doing, pamphlets to hand out, as well as people are engaging with us probably on a more frequent basis than they are individuals at the front desk.
Thank you.
I also wanted to state in efforts of communicating, my colleague, Councilwoman Lori Latham, and our Vice President, she mentioned in the meeting, I believe it was last week, Councilwoman, a request for us to do our due diligence as a city entity to communicate all of the ARPA spending plans that this city has approved. We did receive information from our Chief Operating Officer, and then I did forward back more of a graphic in terms of what we were looking for. And so I will hope from a communications effort that that is something that you are able to do and ensure that we get that out in all those different platforms that was mentioned. I also wanted to note, I think it's great having a strategy to improve communications in terms of what the city is doing, but I want to put emphasis on the city overall, all the departments, the park department, hopefully the Gary Common Council. That was part of my effort to even support the fact that we were bringing on a chief communication officer. The fire department, the police department, they do a great job individually, but I was looking for us to have more of a conscious effort to get that communication out from the city perspective on behalf of everything that's happening. And lastly, I think it's great to do advertising, but this is not a private entity. This is a public municipality. So I just want to be a little more conscious in terms of utilizing, though we do have the money. I do want to ask a question to Controller Green after I make this statement, that we are being innovative, right, in terms of utilizing the funding to still get the word out, but I don't want to be excessive in terms of all the different various outlets that it is to do that. Again, this is not a corporation, right? This is, in fact, a public institution, though, in fact, we do have great revenue sources that fund this particular department. And speaking of which, Ms. Grant, I was concerned in terms of, because of the fact that there's a great there's a great reserve amount in this particular fund, why is your salary still coming out of the general fund?
I believe that question, I don't know if I can answer that. Chief of Staff can answer that question.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam President, Stream Council. We would happily entertain moving this from under the general fund to this line item, if that be the pleasure of the council.
If there's no objections, of course, I don't know, but Controller Green, I will lean on you. If in fact there's over $500,000 in reserves from there, why not? Instead of taking that out of the general fund, we need every penny we can count over there. Controller Green?
Thank you. So there is going to be a change in the revenues in a couple of years. The general fund owed $1 million to the media fund. We paid back $300,000 this year. That's why you see the increase. Another $300 next year and $400 the following year. So they will have to be very careful on how they spend it, because at some point they'll have to go back and reduce once those funds are no longer available.
So I think that might go to my earlier point about being careful on the operating side, right?
Yes.
I think the salaries justified, I get it. Constituent service has been a part of this city since what, 2012 at least? Right, since 2012, so I understand the continuity of that. But I would like to relinquish as much dependence as we can on the operating budget, as possible. So if there's an opportunity to do that for now, and then if we need to reduce on the operating side, we can look to do that. But just wanted to recommend that. And colleagues, you will see, as Controller Green stated on the revenue sheet, that's that $300K loan repayment. And Controller Green also gave us a loan repayment schedule 2 weeks ago, I think it was.
Yes.
That supported our strategy to clean up our interdepartmental loans. Vice President Latham.
Thank you. I do have a question while you're here, Controller Green. The media fund, at one point, was this also used to supplement special events? Or did I make that up?
It was not, there is a special events fund.
Okay. What are some of, if any, what are the restrictions or allowances on the media fund?
It basically, whatever expenses they use have to support the media. So the funds that we're getting are coming from AT&T and from Comcast. 50% goes into the media fund and 50% goes into the general fund. So all the expenses have to mostly, I'm going to say 95% support media. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Latham. Thank you, Controller Green, and thank you, members of the administration who spoke on behalf of that particular department. My elected official colleagues actually have to get out of here and run, but everyone is valued here, and I appreciate you all hanging in there with me. I'm going to go to the city court's budget and ask Judge Monroe to step up, and then directly after, if Madam Clerk is still here. She's gone, okay. Madam Clerk wasn't in here? Oh, no, Ms. Smith has the printouts for us, but if Madam Clerk isn't here, then we'll do it tomorrow on the floor. So we'll do city court, and then we'll go back to Hudson Campbell, whatever was next.
Good evening.
Good evening, Judge.
And I want to thank you guys for your patience with all of us. I think when I started this evening, my hair was black.
Okay.
I told Attorney Hatcher she needs her own meeting, but I will begin. Madam President, you want me to begin with the salary part? And I think the first one that I have on the agenda for you guys is the public defender's budget.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And the public defender's budget, as I've probably explained to you guys years and years, we collect 75% of the monies that we are paid to the public defenders come out 101, and 25% comes out of what the public defenders collect, or what the court collects for those representations. So the Public Defender Fund, you will see a slight increase of the salaries for the Public Defender Fund from last year, and that is, I believe I gave them $500 extra, I believe. And what our revenue was this year was $23,500. I'm projecting for next year, it will be $40,000. And a cash reserve, I believe that amount came, those numbers were inputted by Salita Green's office. So we actually have some cash reserves there. So the total amount that we can spend for 2025 would be $71,000. Of course, we don't plan to spend that.
Any questions, colleagues? Okay, thank you, Judge.
All right, the next one that I have is for our SAPs, and that is actually for our supplemental fund as it relates to the public defenders. I'm sorry, to the probation officers. The probation officers' salaries are state mandated salaries, so every year their salaries go up. And I try to, of course, not put all of that in 101. So the amount of monies that they collect are also the amounts that we charge for people who are on probation. The probation salaries have changed a little bit. So I believe last year we were at a total of 53, and this year with those increases, it'll be 61. But also, we have some cash reserves there of $103,000.
Okay, thank you. Questions, colleagues? Okay.
Now, the next ones I have on my computer, on my phone, so bear with me. I don't see as well as I did years ago.
The next one we have, Judge, is the alcohol fund.
Okay. The alcohol fund is actually a new fund. Well, it's not a new fund, it's an old fund. But Controller Green found that this fund had been dormant and we had some monies in that fund. So what I did this year, thank you, was I was able to do some supplemental to the salaries that my workers make. So for that one, my pretrial supervisor, investigator, I increased their salary slightly. And the total amount for that one would be $23,000 this year. And I believe that total fund had about $55,000 in it, $59,000. So I'm only spending a half, little over half of that for this year, so that I can have some, I can come back and ask you guys again next year in 2026.
Okay.
The next one is for Judicial Salaries Fund, and this fund is something that is collected from our fees that we charge or court costs and things that we collect. And that fund, actually, I reduced it from $21,700 last year down to $13,500 this year. And I'm seeing if we have any. Yes, for this one, we had just a small reserve, and that was $4,400. But the total went down this year.
Questions, colleagues? Vice President Latham?
Thank you, Judge. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little more about cash reserves, about not spending all of the money that's allocated for you every year.
Well, these cash reserves for these funds are not the money that was allocated for the court. These are monies that we have collected over the years, so 20 years probably of collections. So I don't want to spend everything because I'm not sure when we're going to have lean years, like the years that we had to take furlough days. So I just want to try to make sure it's money there for the next year. So we try to collect, pay what we can, give.
Just one more time. You don't want to spend everything right now because you want to prepare for lean years, like when we had furlough days.
Absolutely. I was here when we had furlough days. I was here when we went down to the state to beg that our levy was lifted. And I want to make sure that if that happens again, that the court will be able to sustain themselves.
Thank
And
you.
I have a degree in economics, so I'm pretty cheap.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, and I have two last funds. This one is the mediation fund, and that's another fund that we collect monies for the persons who, we have domestic violence counseling and things like that. And that is a very small fund, so we only pay out of that for our professional services. We pay our mediators, and that is only $10,000. I have something in for machinery and equipment in case we have to buy some computers. And I'm hearing that we might have to buy new computers this year. So the total for that one is $35,000.
Just a quick question, Judge, on the revenue sheet that would accompany the mediation budget. We only had the $4,000 showing to come in for 2025, but we didn't show any reserves. Is that correct?
That's correct. I don't think I spent any money out of that one this year. If I did, it was a very small amount.
So we'll have a little bit of carryover to take care of the 30.
Yes,
Because we'll
ma'am.
need what's that, like 26,000 more?
Well, what'll happen if we don't spend, we might not spend, we'll only spend what we have. So if we don't have $30,000, we
Yeah.
won't spend it because that fund is, again, a discretionary fund. We only pay our mediators out of that fund.
Okay,
And that's only if we have mediations.
okay.
The last one is for drug court. And of course, this is ongoing for our medical supplies and our chemical supplies. That is the top line. For our professional services, of course, the people who do counseling for drug court comes out of that. And we have a little for travel and education because some of the grants and things that we have, we are mandated to do some travel. Printing as well as advertising. So the total for that as well with the machinery equipment is $60,000. And let me see if we had, and we only had $22,000 for the drug court. So we won't be doing too much spending out of drug court either.
All right, thank you, Judge. Colleagues, questions, comments? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Hudson Campbell?
Good evening. We only made one adjustment to our salary budget where we reduced, we eliminated one part-time custodian position. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Christine Gooden, Gooden Williams, Director of the Hudson and Campbell, located across the street, 455 Massachusetts. So we just reduced one custodial position, part-time. We just was unable at that salary rate to keep someone in that position, so we just eliminated all together. As in our operating budget, only thing we made an adjustment was from medical supplies, and we moved it to repairs to building and contractual maintenance.
Quick question, so what was the total amount of receipts in 2024 thus far?
2024 so far, we are at, last time we checked was 97,000.
Okay,
And that's when I did the budget. I don't have the updated for today.
okay. So we probably should put our receipts, numbers in the first column correctly in terms of what what your actual receipts were. I guess that should be,
What are we looking at?
I would think it would be actual receipts and revenue will probably be what you received in 2023 to use in 2024.
Okay.
I believe that's the same cadence that was done like in the media fund as well. Because you're expecting to receive 97 by the end of this year for use in 2025, right?
Oh, no, I think we are already surpassed the 97,000.
Okay. So whatever we potentially believe that we will receive to be used in 2025, that's what we should put in this
Okay.
column, I think. And then this subsidy from the parks, I know that we cut, for just recollection for whoever didn't remember, substantially the Hudson and Campbell. Was it like at least $200-some thousand? I believe it was last year. And Marquette also, I think we decreased it like $400K last year. So let's see. So yeah, so I know that this is incorrect. This 536 that's here in terms of the grand total on your revenue estimate sheet.
You said 536?
It says $536,907.99.
No, I don't know.
Okay, so we need to probably review your whole revenue estimated sheet for 2025. Should say for 2025, and redo this one.
Okay, yeah, I'm not yet, because I don't have that,
Okay.
them numbers close. Mine's is at 216.
So that's your 216 is your budget for 2025.
Right.
Right. So we want to see what your numbers were for this year as well on your revenue estimated sheet.
Okay.
Here come Controller Green. She coming.
Madam Chair, for the sake of time.
Yeah.
Finance will go through for 24 and enter her figures for her.
Yes, ma'am.
But I did want to note that the subsidy from the Parks Department, that their revenues do not support their budget.
I know. So that was going to be I know we cut last year because we could not take anything from 253.
You're correct. And the only thing that we can do here without having to come back before the council, but go before their board is we'll still have to come before the council for the subsidy, is to request the $92,000 from the Parks Department budget to subsidize the Hudson Campbell. It looks like with the property tax revenues that they have coming in,
You think it's going to support this?
it does look like it at this point.
So let's think about that because I also want to review Marquette.
Okay.
So let's do Marquette next because I know we cut Marquette. They ride on fumes out there.
Yes.
And I saw that we cut Marquette even more. Okay. So we'll look at that. We updated. The finance team is going to help, and then we will keep it moving. No potential changes to salaries overall at the Hudson and Campbell except for the elimination of one of the custodian positions.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now we're going to do Marquette, colleagues. So I think in our packet it said recycling was next, but just go on the back side of that. I think it starts the revenue sheet. So the next budget after that is Marquette.
Good evening, President and Council.
Good
My
evening.
name is Kamisha Jackson, Executive Director at Marquette Park Pavilion. At this time, on the salary budget, I did not make any changes. We are fully staffed at this time, so that's really a good thing. Because right now we're hosting about 60 events per year, and that does not include the shelter rentals and the Area 5 rentals and the special beach permits. So on top of the events we have at the pavilion, we're still booked and very busy out at Marquette Park Pavilion. And our events, there's a big variety of events that we have. Of course, you know, we've hosted the Superhero and Princess Brunch. So next year will be year 5. And that's something that we're very, very proud of. We've hosted last year was our 4th annual Food Truck Block Fest, that we are proud of that as well. As you all know, the community come out for the Wine Down Wednesday. We host multiple baptisms on the lakefront, sorority and fraternity events, of course, weddings, birthday parties, and we have several repeat customers that come to Marquette. So I'm happy about the events that we host at Marquette, and just wanted to give you a little overview as to the events that we have. On the operating side, I did not make any changes. However, I did receive a budget, and there is a change on here. And the change is in contractual maintenance, and it looked like it was cut $100,000. Last year we were at 200,000. This year it's at 100. They're proposing at 100,000.
Okay. I'll proceed, and colleagues, please just get my attention if you have anything else to add. So thank you so much, Ms. Jackson, and I want to commend you for the hard work that you all are doing. I know we joke against each other in terms of it being deemed Marquette a crown jewel, but it is in fact one of the greatest assets that we have in the city, and you all have done an outstanding job. In the region, let me be clear, an asset of the region, that's true. Thank you, Vice President Latham. 2 things that I wanted to review quickly. Of course, I'm concerned about this decrease in 115. I know that we worked diligently during last year's budget review for special revenue to reduce, and ultimately, even based on a report that Vice President Latham had provided to us back in April, the optimum budget for Marquette that a consultant gave us was $700,000. And they identified about $400,000 or $500,000 being subsidized from the general fund as a strategy for us to ensure viability and sustainability of that particular asset. So we cut it to half of that, less than half, right? We cut out almost $400,000 last year, I believe. So to see us even cut down contractual maintenance, and I know one thing we knew that used to come out of this was the buoys.
Correct.
Ensuring that the boat launch was ready.
Correct.
And I do remember, and I looked at my notes, the parking, I believe, revenue from the beaches were estimated previous years to accommodate that. But I see that it's decreased substantially.
Yes.
In terms of what we are projecting, and I'm sure this is a reflection of probably current trends. So if you could give me some insight in terms of what's going on with that.
Yes. So last year, what we collected was $137,617. This year, we only collected $86,293.01, and that's a large part is because the boat launch was not operable, and Lake Street Beach was closed most of the summer because the boat launch was not open. So that really hit us at the bottom line.
And who made the determination to close or not to open Lake Street?
Well, that would not be a decision that I could make. So it would go above my head.
So is our park director here to answer that question?
No.
Okay, can we, Chief of Staff Dumas, you want to try to take a stab at that question?
So for speaking in regards to the boat launch, only because I was debriefed in regards to the situation, we found out that at the beginning of the year, there was an outstanding balance of about $75,000 from the previous year to dig out the boat launch. That is the annual cost that they paid a contractor to dig out the boat launch every year. After covering that cost, we want to try to come up with a more permanent location, as well as the funds that were not available at that time to continue to go forth, considering some of the other factors that we had to cover. So that was the only reason why the boat launch was being reevaluated. We actually received some assistance from, or some advice from, trying to come up with a few options that would install a more permanent option, including like a floating ramp. And I'm sorry if I'm not making the correct technical term in regards to it, but that was the main reason.
Okay. I'm going to make these comments, but they're not directed at you.
Absolutely.
It's just to the situation. No way, shape, or form should our beaches be closed or not accessible. The boat launch it's needed, right? It is largely, it's a draw to outside communities. It's a strong revenue generator. And it makes no sense for us to not have that ready. Every year we know that there's an issue with the boat launch. Every year we know it has to be ensured that it's cleaned out and digged. The whole summer, we should ensure that we have a maintenance plan so that it's not, we know this, right? And so I would have expected that that's something that, the park director would have been focused on to ensure that it was executed before the end of season closing. So I would hope that there was a plan in place. So now, right, for one, so we can be park ready, for two, so that we can be ready for our beach season as well, because this is detrimental to the city. I also just wanted to say quickly, it was the ensuring that it was open, the buoys is paid. Oh yeah, the fact that there was a balance of $75,000. I don't know. I mean, every year we have the same conversation. And that seems odd because we have cleared up the balance with that particular vendor I've been in office for 5 years, thank God, but every year. And so I would ask Vice President Latham if you all are receptive to her support and help in trying to make sure that we get that out. And I do know that we had confirmed that I believe this, as well as the buoy contract pricing, was going to come out of $253. So I don't know what's happening with the management of that.
And the name of that vendor is ACCI. I know you were just asking that question.
Yeah, it was under a different name.
And so this is literally the same thing, the concern that I believe we spoke off the line about in regards to also having an excavator in our waters. I believe you made that comment before. And we talked about that from an environmental standpoint and what that looks like from a safety standpoint. So
At least an old excavator in the water. You don't want an old one that's leaking oil or rusting in Lake Michigan, which is our source of drinking water.
absolutely, Madam Vice President. And we will ensure that it's ready this summer.
Thank
not
you,
an
Chief
option.
of Staff. And in the sake of time, my last comment is that we look at this assistant manager position. I do know for a fact that that role requires extensive amount of overtime, and just want to ensure that it's in line with that, the labor law, Chief of Staff Dumas, that you provided insight for us as well. We might need to revisit that.
Yes, ma'am. So the new information, Madam President, and the rest of the council, is that 2025, that number goes up again. So I don't believe we've been Comptroller Green and I have been going back and forth overall, along with HR, as to the impact. That number is over 51,000 as of 2025. I think at this time we wouldn't be providing sound guidance or fiscal responsibility if we came back and asked for that many increases. So we're trying to evaluate time and see how we do with managing time overall, giving some strong guidance to our directors in regards to it.
Got it. So I know that, again, this is a revenue fund, right? That revenue in is revenue out. And I get the sentiments as is respect to those particular salaries that are focused from the general fund, right? And that we subsidize with casino operating funds as well. But if in fact there is confidence that, for one, we will have all of our operating entities related to Marquette Park operational, and that we will maximize revenue, and that we will do whatever we can to support the staff out there. I would hope that the administration could then look at that salary and support that.
Yes, ma'am.
Colleagues, any additional questions or comments? So I would ask for that to be revised for our amendment for tomorrow as well. I'm just taking my notes.
Will do.
Any questions or comments, additional concerns? Okay, and then just, again, that $100,000 decrease, maybe the same thing, if we plan for it, but again, revenue in is revenue out, right? This is not us utilizing funding from general fund. It does say a subsidy, but I have confidence in the executive director over there that she would do whatever she can to increase that revenue so that we could sustain the $200,000. I think that because when I say we was riding on fumes last year to even get it to that point, so I would hate to see it justified even more without us making a conscious effort to increase our revenue out there. Okay, so I would ask for that particular Department 1102 to be revised on those two elements, the assistant manager, as well as that, what was that, under contractual maintenance?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, seeing no questions, thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you, Chief of Staff Dumas and Controller Green. Is there any additional comments before we move on? You all good?
Oh, yes. I just wanted to, that's why I wanted to ask that clarification question so that I didn't make a mistake. I believe we paid for the buoys out of 253.
That was the sentiments last year, so I just want to ensure that that is going to be
That has been,
continued.
that was
Okay.
at least that was the advice that I was given by Madam Vice President early on in some of those pieces. And so,
Ms. Matee, is she here? Ms. Matee, is she here? I gotta. Good evening. Turn on the mic for us so we can all hear you. It will be the right button.
Sorry about that. Good evening,
Good evening.
council members. My name is Mattie Fitzgerald Williams. I'm the recycling director. The recycling department is ran from grant funding from the Lake County Solid Waste Management District. We received grant funding of $450,824 annually. The funds cover our salaries as well as recycling bin purchases, repairs to equipment, as well as recycling events and free services to our residents. Just to name a few of our free programs, we have our e-waste program that we operate Monday through Friday for the residents to come in and recycle cell phones, computers, as well as televisions. We also have our shredding program that the residents are also welcome to come into our department at 900 Madison and shred their personal documents. The recycling department salaries did change. We have 2 recycling CDL drivers that have received an increase from $34,500 to $38,000, and then we have 2 recycling helpers that were from $32,000, and they will receive $34,320. The increase are based on the approval of, excuse me, the approval of the city. I'm sorry, the city as well as their union. We also have changes in our operation budget, and those changes was to provide more recycling bins to the residents of the city. And I did remove funding from several line items, which was other supplies, from $2,000, and it was decreased to $500. Repairs to equipment from $3,400 to $2,000, and then printing from $1,000 to $400, and advertising from $2,000 to $500. The repairs to equipment went down as well from $5,000 to $200. because in the past 3 years, we were able to purchase new vehicles for the drivers, so we are experiencing less repairs. And that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fitzgerald-Williams. Colleagues, questions, comments? Okay.
Yes, Madam President.
Councilwoman Ivy?
Really quickly, anytime I'm ever in the presence of those young men that work for recycling, they always are very pleasant. They do a good job and they're very knowledgeable. And thank you for speaking on the program to recycle cell phones and laptops. I had no idea about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions, colleagues? Okay. Seeing none, we will move forward. This is the Fire Department, Chief Tillman.
Good evening, Madam President, Council. Larry Tillman, Chief of the Gary Fire Department.
Good evening.
I'm here to review the special revenue budgets for the Gary Fire Department, beginning with the 2215 Ambulance Non-Reverting Fund. In the salary budget, there was only one increase, and it was to the position of EMT changing to paramedic. We had an EMT who graduated from the paramedic class. He received his certification, and it was noted when we put these positions in that they would be increased up on completion of that certification. So that was an increase to that position of $17,447.32, which was a 1.9% increase to the salary budget overall. And that was the only increase. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. We can do your operating.
Okay. Operating budget for 2215 only reflected the increase of that salary on that line item. So that was, at the end, you end up with $3,108,860, which is a 1.2% increase from last year.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Just the notes that we have here with this paramedic supervisor and the EMS director, we can remove those, right?
We were going to remove them. We zeroed them out in our budget, but
No. We can remove just the comments, and because you want to keep it here.
Yes, we can remove the comments.
Okay, so just, well, I'll write that down. It's something we just need to do. Where's my pink sheets? Colleagues, any questions related to the operating portion of the infamous 224 fund, right?
Yeah.
All right. And Vice President Latham, you talk about cash reserve, honey. It's definitely reflected in this particular department. Thank you, Chief. We can go ahead to capital equipment for fire.
Okay, capital equipment. Okay, for capital equipment, this used to be the NVA fund for $500, a 6% decrease.
Thank you, Chief. Colleagues, any questions? Very good.
Okay. Next, we have the joint public safety training budget. This is also funds that were donated to the city for training, for the training department, for the purposes of equipment or things that they needed. There hasn't been any revenue that has been added. It is, there has been a decrease of $2,800 overall, bringing us to $10,205 left in that fund.
Thank you, Chief.
And then the last fund for the Gary Fire Department would be the Fire Watch Fund. This one is kind of a tricky one. There was $180,000 plus $1,000 put into an account for Fire Watch for when we go to different buildings that don't have proper sprinkler systems. We have not been really able to access this fund due to ADP, an issue with ADP. Now that we're integrating back into RDS, we will have access to these funds. Right now, we had $80,719 for last year. We went up to $209,001, and we did some increases to perf and FICA. When we were when we were billing the companies, we were billing them $27 an hour for each employee, but we weren't taking into account their fringe benefits. So those were added in. And so that was an increase of $28,282 overall. It was a 15% increase to that fund. I would just like to add also, last year, we were able to receive $107,244 from the Gary Housing Authority and roughly $93 from Centus, but we weren't able to utilize this fund when we did the fire watch. We had to use overtime from the general fund to do it because we could not access this fund. So we plan to use this next year.
Thank you, Chief. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. Okay, we have our Health Department budgets, plural. Ms. Collins.
Good evening,
Hey,
Madam
good evening.
President and Council. The Health Department has 9 budgets. I would like to go over the inspection fee budget, which is, okay, I'm sorry.
You mind going in order that's in our packet? You don't have our packet? Oh,
Which
okay.
one?
If I announce them out beforehand, is that okay? Okay,
Yes.
so the first one is the local health maintenance, Department 717.
Okay. So this is the Senate for funding that we received from the state. And this budget, a lot of things change in this budget. This is 1.6, thank you, I appreciate it. $1.6 million budget. What changed from last year to this year? We added the lead case manager, 2 health inspectors, a navigator, insurance navigator, a disease intervention specialist, 1, 2 disease intervention specialists, 2, a medical office technician, a STI program manager, a fiscal manager, and a public health nurse. So the last 3 that I've added, that's to supplement already a budget that we no longer have with the community development. And all those other positions are new.
Okay, so the last 3 are subsidies to existing.
Correct.
Okay. And the main portion of the salaries are coming from another grant, or is it in your general fund?
No, it's coming from this funding.
Okay, but in a different.
Oh, yes. Yeah, different grant. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are different grants. Yes.
All right. Okay, we can keep going.
Okay, let me see which one is next.
Oh, I should tell you. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot. So Healthy Families is next.
Okay, that's a revenue account. I'm sorry. That's our revenue account for STI, our STD clinic. These are fees that assist that when people come get tested for STDs, STIs, this is to assist with operational needs in the clinic. Okay. So nothing changed really on this, but we adding printing because we do a lot in the community with STI. So we want to make sure that we have printing in the line item.
Okay.
Next.
And then the next one we have is 743, just says Gary Health Department.
Oh, correct. This is our inspection fees. So when the health inspectors are out, these are the fees that they collect for the year.
Okay. Next we have 208 County Health.
Okay. We pay the county for each death certificate that's purchased $2.50. And no line item change on that.
Okay. Next, we have crisis, it says, I guess, COVID AG workforce.
Okay. So this is rollover funding that we received from a grant 2 years ago, so it's still rolling over. The only thing that changed on this was the salary page for the last three, the front desk, receptionist, client support staff, both of the client support staff. Those positions came in the middle of the year, so that's why the difference is different for the 2025.
Okay. I'll take a pause real quick and just confirmation, the disease intervention specialist, that is again another subsidy, right? This $5,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Colleagues, just stop me. I'm just gonna go quick. We got a whole another committee meeting that I totally forgot about. So we're just gonna, if it's a question, just stop me so we can, okay? Okay, the next one that we have is the immunization billing.
That's a revenue account. We bill Medicaid for immunizations. So we only have a part-time salary on this one. And
And a substantial carryover as well.
correct.
Right? Okay. Warming and Cooling Center is next.
As Attorney Reagan spoke with you in regards to the sheltering, this is a transition shelter with warming and cooling needs. So the only thing that went up on this is the full-time salary. I took it from 43,600 to 50,000. She will have to be available, not just during the COVID, the warming and cooling needs, but for sheltering.
And this is a new position, correct?
No.
This is an existing position?
Correct.
So I was under the impression that I should have expected a new position to be created under this particular department as well. Chief of Staff? Okay. I see you. Okay, all right. Okay, we'll move on.
Okay.
Huh? Okay. All right, we'll move on.
Okay. Which one is that? The
Now
next
we have the opioid settlement. We're doing restricted funds first.
Okay. So we have ordered 4 Narcan machines, vending machines. In this budget, we only have for the medical supplies to purchase the Narcan.
Okay. Then we have unrestricted.
This is where we funded for recipients for grants for $25,000, organizations that's working with that population. The difference is that we do not have a part-time salary in this budget anymore. What we're using that mental health, the behavioral program manager to be over the opiate funding and also the mental health initiative. And that's the only change that we had.
Okay.
And I think that's all.
Yes.
Are there any questions?
No, thank you.
Ooh, thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being a great sport.
Oh, no problem.
Is someone from the police department here? If not, we're going to move on to who is here. Okay, so I would advise you all to get a memo to representatives from the police department that they should have been here or whatever to go over this. And then I believe we have Ms. Brenda Scott Henry, who has been hanging in there. And colleagues, those are at the very end of this packet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Council, Madam President.
Good evening.
And I'm not sure which order.
I'll
Good
call them
evening.
out for you. So the first one we have is environmental affairs, the air quality.
Yes, the air quality program, I want to go to the revenue budget first and just let you know that our source of revenue is primarily from permits and fees. And we are anticipating the same amount of revenue that we collected last year, which is, I'm gonna have to make this adjustment. But the expense anticipated for December 2024 for that $232,000, I want to take $132,000 of that and put it in transfer to landfill fund 2221, because we often have a shortfall for those, for that budget, and I'll talk about that one later. So we have about $1.3 million available for operations, and you'll see that we have a slight increase into the stipend that we have for the office manager. I only put it for her because of some additional duties that she had assumed in terms of the extra duties that I had. So I put that additional stipend there for her. And then we have, the only other change that I have in the operating budget is it's called repairs to building, but it may be that it's, I heard someone else do their overview, it may be just for current charges so that we can get some replacement of the carpet in our office that's been there forever, and then replace some furniture in the office. Currently, my desk drawer is on the floor. So we are in desperate need of some furniture in our office. Other than that, I do want to say that I just want to emphasize that under grants and subsidies that we have a substantial amount of money there, $270,000, but we're going to have to float some revenue for our Solar for All grant, and we're going to need some cash flow in order to get the program started that we will be totally reimbursed for, but we need some funding. So that's all I have for that budget.
Okay.
To point out.
Environmental affairs, this is for the clean field management one?
Pardon me?
The J-Pit?
Yep. So the J-Pit is pretty clear cut. We operate the J-Pit in the Klein Avenue Borrow Pit. We anticipate collecting about $277,000 this year. Most of that funding is used to offset costs for managing the landfill and meeting compliance there. And then, and as you can see in the budget, we just transfer that funds over into the landfill account. And then the final account, my computer is acting really crazy right now, is for the landfill. We have a budget of $447,000. Most of that is for professional services and contractual maintenance. These are requirements of the for managing the landfill, ranging from anywhere from environmental engineering services to monitoring the air quality, water quality, and land quality activities per our post-closure plan, and those items that are under the consent decree. You have any questions for me on the budgets?
No, I think that we are good to go, and we appreciate your leadership over our environmental department. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I definitely want to say thank you for the opera funds that we received last year to help us to meet compliance at the landfill. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. There was no member of the public who signed up to speak for the Finance Committee, and so it is 8:10 p.m. I'm going to close out this meeting, and we do in fact have Ways and Means, and so I guess we'll stop, we'll cut, and then I'll go right into Ways and Means as soon as possible. Thank you for joining. Meeting adjourned.